Hey, it's Alex. Today I'll be reading from my new novel, 2092, A Tale of American Carnage. Chapter 1, An Introduction to the Post-Nuclear Era. It was the year 2092. The past 70 years had not been great for freedom. There were some ups and downs, mostly downs. Oh, so many downs. World War III went about as well as one could imagine. And of course, I mean that it cost the lives of 2 billion people. Once the nukes started to fly, it was seemingly impossible for anyone hanging on to a nuke themselves to hold back. The period was by and large a cacophonous cavalcade of chaos and hitherto unfound and incalculable misery. It was difficult for historians to determine who was the winner of the war. All of the major players, thanks to some extensive propaganda campaigns, all said that their countries won. In actuality, nobody really won. The war never stopped. Yet the major powers all declared themselves the undisputed winners. When the dust began to kind of clear, the American public decided to try something new and elected a robot for a president, because why not? People chose to ignore the fact that those who sought to beseech them had no souls whatsoever to speak of. Yet they always had plenty to preach. The Republican robots were programmed to have humans' best interests in mind. Yeah, right. However, they were also programmed to be as close to a human being as possible, which meant they were also illogical and oft-times irrational. And that led to some interesting behavior and policies. In addition, they could be influenced in a number of ways, usually by a few little hacks here and there, and in lieu of specialized technical computer skills, they could be bribed as well, much like many real modern American politicians. These mechanized constructs were elected and tasked to rewrite the very fabric of American democracy. It turned out to be an objectively awful idea. Thus was birthed modern American Republican nationalist democracy, which, if you ask me, was not actually much of a democracy at all. Especially once they put robots in charge. It reached a peak with the Reaganizer. But after his tenure, there wasn't any robot out there that was strong enough, that had enough charisma to keep their own distinctive, tangy flavor of the American dream going. By then, though, it was clear that the citizens had had enough. Eventually, America was run by American men again. America should have learned its lesson, but guess what? It didn't. Do we ever? So once a new election cycle rolled around, after the bulk, 76% of the ruling robots had been consigned to the scrap heap, America decided to nominate whatever politicians they had left that had not already been chopped up into stew meat and fed to the starving, diseased masses. What can I say? Their constituents were hungry. As a result of that election, Silas Vance Cooney, a platinum-level liberal Democrat from the industrial wilds of L.A., beat out the Republican front-runner, and according to the polls, the favorite in the election, Austin Eustace Maverickson. These were the salad days of 2082, and they were short but sweet. It took less than 2 months before Americans began to very seriously regret their decision to vote for such a man. He was reputedly and reportedly the laziest American president in all of history by his detractors and unbiased historians alike. It was partially due to the fact that he preferred to take naps when he should have been working. He even napped on the golf course while he was taking a break from his job, as you know, being the president, which he did as often as possible. That is, take more naps and breaks than a newborn American baby on vacation. And let us not forget Vance Cooney's inaction on any real course of policy. He did whatever possible to avoid making it look like he took a side on any issue. On occasion, he would refer to himself as the Great Pragma Titian, which referred to how he would often cut deals with both sides without consulting the other. It did not matter that Pragmatician, a portmanteau of pragmatic and magician, wasn't a word. He made it one. Thanks to the Reaganizer and his cabal of silicon-chewing cabinet of treachery masterminds, the president had that kind of power for years now. Nothing mattered anymore except the bottom line, it seemed. Vance Cooney could have pressed the issue to remove the Reaganizer's creativity ban, but Vance Cooney didn't really like to shake things up, as he took choice often to say after the election. Literally, one of the lines he had on his banners was, "Shake things up with a vote for Vance Cooney." Typical politician. Vance Cooney wasted no time abusing his authority for personal gain to enhance his businesses and get plenty of pictures taken with celebrities, to get jobs for his weird, unqualified relatives and in-laws. He did little to serve his country. All smiles all the time, Vance Cooney was a pathetic waste of life. And the people knew it. I mean, they figured it out immediately after his inauguration. He became a very different person when the heated campaign was over. A lot of them seemed to. Everyone said that the liberal Democrats shouldn't have backed Vance Cooney for a second term. They should have picked the candidate everybody liked. But they didn't pick him. I mean, plenty of people voted for him, but they didn't pick him. Everything was fixed. Even Monday night church bingo had more than a few fingers in every pot. Corruption was less a sin than it was a mantra. Still, though, American voters wanted to shake up the system again. So in 2086, America voted for the worst possible candidate. Some simply out of spite. People really had a chip on their shoulders that year. And that man, the man that was ultimately chosen to lead this great nation of oft willful ignorance, was J. Royden Eagleman. Nobody knew what the J stood for. They might have if the man had released his tax returns. But that wasn't about to happen, ever. He called it my little secret. What? Was the whole world going to explode if anybody found out what the man's damn real name was? No, of course not. It was a choice diversion, of which there were many in Eagleman's political arsenal. Eagleman was owner and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar fake news and vape cigarette empire, stretching from South Oklahoma all the way to West Texas, which, by the way, were all new states. No conflict of interest there. Nope, not at all. So, of course, Eagleman manipulated the public opinion, favoring himself. He did not need to. Vance Cooney wasn't going to win either way. Once inaugurated, Eagleman made certain that there were no longer any major American news outlets outside of his own. As a consequence, people made and distributed their own news. It was what they saw as opposed to what Eagleman told them they saw. And therein was the appeal. This news was oftentimes found on The Wire. Different from the internet, it was perhaps the only modicum of truth left in this society. Truthfully, Eagleman wasn't the man who made creativity illegal, though he was the first one to implement and enforce it as a whole. Eagleman signed an executive order, one of 10,000 score, within the first month of taking office. It banned any and all artistic professions that were not somehow attached to Eagleman or the government. It was an extension of the Reaganizer's creativity ban, a ban that in reality was rarely enforced, unlike the Muslim ban. Still though, overnight, artists became illegal. But they still needed someone to draw up the propaganda for the websites, to draw huge murals depicting the people's president, to come up with ads and packaging inserts. The official positions were retitled to reflect the new administration's concerns. For example, instead of a creative director, that became director of pictorial propagandism. Graphic artists became image applicators, and so on. The ruling party loved their thinly veiled euphemisms, and they were not shy about saying it either. "We need to protect our post-nuclear American freedom," said Eagleman, "and the only way to do that is to initiate some policies that, yes, may prove to be unpopular among the do-nothing liberals. But even so, we must press forward. Yes, we will press forward into the fiery, glowing light." People weren't sure whether he was talking about the dawn or the epicenter of a thermonuclear explosion. In all likelihood, it was both. Now, even though the attack on creativity was not originally Eagleman's baby, something else was. Yes, Eagleman was the one who finally took action against the malignancy of American ignorance. For you see, once America banned and booted out all of the immigrants some 55 years ago, it made blaming everyone's problems on them a little more difficult to prove. Since there were no admitted Mexican nationals, no Canadians left, no Arabs, America's heartland took to blaming second or third generation sons and daughters of immigrants. They became known as Igrants. And they were what America thought it needed to get rid of, that is. And herein lies the story of the decline of American civilization, the story of which shouldn't surprise anybody. Thank you very much. That's the end of chapter 1. Hope you enjoyed that. More to come.